Welcome to the Matt Money Show. I'm your host, Matt Cervoni, a CPA who likes to talk. And my goal is to provide clear steps to take control of your business and personal finance. If you have topics or questions that you'd like addressed on the show, go to @TheMattMoneyShow on Instagram, send us a DM, leave a comment, and we will feature it on a future episode. What I'd like to cover today is how to set goals and ultimately understand when we talk about becoming wealthy, what that means to each of us. Because honestly, being wealthy is kind of by definition. I know people that they would not consider themselves wealthy unless they had more of the traditional sense that you hear about on social media, where maybe you have a Porsche, a yacht, and a private jet. There's also people that, and I think this is actually more common, would consider themselves wealthy with a fully funded retirement, no debt, and when you go out to eat, you can order appetizers and not look at the price on the menu. Sounds pretty good, but I think one of the best things when we're talking about setting goals and personal finance is understanding what does that actually look like. So one of the best places to start when you're setting long-term goals is go ahead and begin with the end in mind. This is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And what we want to do is set that goal and kind of define it very well. What does it look like? Sit down and actually write it out, see what that picture is. And then we want to work backwards. Where do I need to be in 10 years, 5 years, 1 year, and then even today in order to be on the right track to meet that goal? I think once you define the end and you have a good understanding of what this actually will look like, you'll realize that a lot of our financial goals are a lot more attainable than we think. If you don't spend any time thinking about what your rich life would look like, sometimes you will default, use someone else's rich life as the definition of your own, and you may not actually care about ever owning a Porsche or a yacht. So I think having this is a really great first step. And we're about to be entering the new year. So a lot of people are setting goals, trying to better themselves. And rather than just focusing on an action that you could take to just generally be better, let's think about what does my future look like? What do I hope it looks like? And what things do I need to be doing, in order to be on the right track? Now, how do we stay accountable to our long-term goals? And how do we stay flexible? Because if you're like me, your long-term goal probably changes in major or small ways over time. And so there should be a process for refining the goal, refining the steps that we're taking to get there. And I think one of the best processes for this is doing an annual review. And I like doing my annual reviews at year end and kind of figuring out what is this next calendar year going to look like for me. But there's a lot of people out there that they might choose to do their birthday or some other mark throughout the year that works really well for you. Another good example I can think of is like maybe you kind of have a raise or annual review meeting with your company. Maybe it's easier to do yearly planning in line with that. So think about when I'd want to do the annual review. And then what we need to do from there is figure out what that structure looks like. We don't want it to be overbearing, but we want to maybe review our ultimate goal. Some might call this like the 10x vision or the unleashed, whatever I want in life. And then kind of work backwards 10 years. And then also, what do I need to do this year? From there, I like breaking down my year into quarterly goals that I can do to stay on track with maybe what I want to do for the total year. So I call these quarterly rocks. It comes from the book Traction. And essentially what the rocks should do is contribute to that annual goal. So I'll use an example of saving more money. If I want to save X amount of dollars this year, then maybe my Q1 rock needs to be setting up auto deposits, having a personal budget, and checking in on that budget twice a month. And if I do that, I'm more likely to have funded my savings goal when I get to the end of the first quarter. And then I can kind of see where I'm at, adjust again for Q2, and just keep the train moving. So We're just taking higher level goals and breaking them down further and further. Now, the last step that I really love is a weekly clarity break. And this allows me to, throughout the quarter, just take a step back from the grind of business and all the things we have going on in our lives, to-do lists and everything, and just sit and think, what am I trying to accomplish this year? What am I trying to do? What's my quarterly rock? And just write about it. Am I on track? Do I feel good about things? Or are things sort of falling off and maybe I need to tighten them up? So what we can ultimately do in order to have a better vision for our personal finance and thus be more motivated to do this right is have an ultimate picture. What does my rich life look like? And it doesn't have to be perfect right now. Let's just write that down. Let's get an idea for it. You could always change it later. And then let's work backwards. What do I need to do this year to be on track for that? Work backwards further. What can I do this quarter in order to be on track for my annual goal? And then let's just check in once a week. I like doing it at a coffee shop. I still want to know where you all might prefer to do yours, but it is out of the ordinary element, and usually there's just enough going on there to where you can really focus without feeling like you're just in kind of dead space, like perfectly quiet, unless that's what you like. Maybe it is. And that's a really good way to stay on track with our goals. Now, the last thing I might leave you with is this process is also really good for other goal setting. So if you own a business, setting the ultimate goal for the business and working backwards can be just as effective as it would be in personal finance. If you're struggling with fitness, doing this same exercise could be applicable to that. Really anything that we want to achieve in life, if we are willing to sit down and plan and be proactive, we're going to be able to experience more success. And the last thing that I would say is don't be scared of what you put down as your rich life, or any long-term goal that you may set for yourself. The rich life, the long-term vision, that can change over time. What matters is that we're taking real steps in the right direction, and we'll continue to refine it as life goes on. So if you want to learn more about goal setting, I would highly recommend the book Traction if you're a business owner. And if you're not, there's a lot of content out there surrounding quarterly rocks for individual goal setting that's not business related or personal finance related. But also, if you have questions, we're here to help. So if you run into any sort of issues with goal setting, or you are curious about maybe a situation that you're in, write in and we'll feature it on a future episode. So hope everyone had a great Christmas week, and we'll be back in the new year with a lot more exciting stuff around the Matt Money Show. See you guys on Monday.